Hi, I am Peggy, your crypto gal. Sorry, you guys, it's been a little bit of a week of an adventure. I took a little bit of time off, but I am back. Feeling a little bit under the weather, but I'm back and I'm happy to be back. I'm glad to be able to see you guys. Oh my goodness, this BITO, whatever the hell you want to call it, Bitcoin ETF that has hit the market in the New York Stock Exchange. It has got Bitcoin. Is this a retracement that we're being able to see? Is this the effects of what we're going to be called for? I'm going to be opening up and discussing deep into this subject. And as you guys know, I like to always break it down so people can understand what the meaning of the words are, what the hell I'm saying and what I'm describing. So please be patient with me. You guys that are at advanced level, this might not be the one that you want to see because I'm definitely going to be able to describe and define, because I think this ETF with what the SECs have done in the New York Stock Exchange and putting it out there on the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is a commodities. This is where our commodities market sits. You guys know I'm really big into the commodities market, especially with my precious metals and agricultural. This drives it. And what is the future ETF, or is this going to be a spot for the ETF? So this is what I'm going to be able to divulge with you guys, and looking into it. I've been up since the wee hours of the morning just because of what's been happening over there in Asia too. So let's get started. Okay, I'm not your financial advisor, but I am here to be able to share with you guys anything that might give you one little thing of more read and research for you to benefit with your investment out there in cryptocurrency or even in the stocks. I am also one that be able to like to share other different values of what's out there and what I feel like you can do with your money. But this is strictly my personal opinion. I'm sharing it as an educational level with you guys, not as a risk factor. So please make sure you advise those different levels with your own financial advisor. But I'm happy to be able to discuss with you. I just had a great conversation with a new friend that I'm so treasured to have in my new cubbyhole, and that is what we were talking about with the ETFs and what was going to happen on Monday versus what the exchange was going to do on Tuesday. And sure enough, here's what's happening. It had a little bit of a pullback with Bitcoin, and then it just totally jumped into making sure that this was a movement of what we're going to see. And so this is why I feel like you're seeing a retracement factor coming into play with Bitcoin. And I'll get more into that of showing what I've been describing with that. Okay, so also you can follow me on YouTube, which that's what this is right now. Please dingle the bell, subscribe to me, even if you just want to be a kind word to myself, be able to keep me alive out there, because there are so many people that are trying to understand and grasp what the hell is cryptocurrency. So sometimes you just kind of have to step back and help those people, because we need more people to understand what this digital space is and the benefits that you can have with it, as well as your investment opportunities. I'm also on Telegram, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find me with all the information listed below in the YouTube. Please dingle the bell and subscribe. Okay, here we go. Okay, so at the wee hours of the morning for myself, because you guys know I am all about the early riser in myself. With that being said and stated, the bullish Bitcoin market easily digests the spike in its trading volumes. Okay, the cryptocurrency exchanged more than over 10,000 Bitcoins in a span of 2 hours, at least $620 million worth of base on its current price. You ask me, how was this manageable? That's right. In the sentiment of it appears, and it's quite bullish evidence of quick absorption of this huge sell order on crypto exchange OKEX during the Asian daytime trading hours early this morning. Now you have to realize at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., according to the data of TradingView, which is one I'll be able to share with you guys as well, the volume spiked on trades between Bitcoin and the stable coin. And I've been doing a lot of stable coin information with you guys on the USDT. So this has been an advancement movement for that. From 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., the trading volume totaled 5,929 BTCs on the exchange alone, and it reached 4,049 BTCs from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. as the trading volume showed this in the movement. The total of more than 10,000 BTCs works out of at least $620 million based on its cryptocurrencies in its latest price values. Now, mind you, this is what occurred this morning as a comparison. I think this is a grandeur that we're seeing in this movement of market. I think it's one that played a huge factor early on this morning with Asia knowing what was going to be driven out there in the market. So let me just share this screen with you guys really, really quick. I hope y'all can see this. It's a little bit vague, but I think it's definitely worth looking at with you guys. Okay, this is what I'm looking at 2 a.m. this morning. I just took a quick snapshot looking at it, and because I woke up with the Asian market because I wanted to see what they were going to do in cryptocurrency for its movement, getting into the statuette with the ETF volume, because there's so many people. Do I go? Do I go? Do I go? Personally, I didn't do anything because you got 3 indicators. Bitcoin travels in 3 indicator movements, and we were in that 3rd movement on Monday, yesterday. And so I knew that you're going to see this, and what you're going to see is this retracement factor and the pullbacks going back and forth as a toggle. And it's sure enough, as of today, while we're in this movement of time zones, waiting on the market to close, and it's just about there getting ready to dingle the bell, this is one that I wanted to say with you guys that it played a huge factor as to being driven with this ETF. Not one that I strongly supported, and I've already had some negative people for what I posted up on my Facebook showing that the ETF is benefit and what the SEC is doing with it, because they're wanting to do this as a future ETF. This is not a stronghold because that spot price is something that's going to have to be monitored. Sure, can the SEC monitor? They're grasping at straws. The SEC is so desperate to figure out what they can do and drive in the stablecoins. This is why they're getting more and more involved in the stablecoin. Like I told you guys the other day, stablecoins are those that the volume line, it doesn't justify. It's not as volatile as what Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, XRP, Chainlink, Uniswap, what the other coins are doing. And because there is so much growth, we've got over 1,000 coins being developed right now across the globe to be added on to this cryptocurrency rankings market into what we're going to see. So with this, the SEC is trying to divulge and figure out what they can do as a better investment line source. And this is why they came up with this, not why they came up with it, but what I feel like they came up with it in regards to this ETF and making sure that they could get the investors involved, because they had to move something in the market. Let's face it, with the debt ceiling of what they just made a decision on, it was not something that was profound for us to be beneficial of, and this was a discouragement. So they had to do something because there are more and more people that are asking more and more questions in regards to the digital world, which is excellent. Okay, now there is a view that it seems that there was a pending sale order of about 14,000 Bitcoins that traded the pair out of the OKEX, but it was subsequently eaten up by the order. Okay, just to give you that little bit of its factors of what happened early on this morning, but it still drove Bitcoin. As the sun started to rise into the Eastern Coast, waiting for that 9:30 a.m. dingle of the bell and the New York Stock Exchange, that Bitcoin was trading at $62,079, up 11% over the last week. Okay, this was noted into the CoinDesk factor. This observed the market action came as all eyes were on Bitcoin this morning ahead of its planned launch of the ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF. This was the industry's first ever Bitcoin futures focused exchange traded fund to be approved by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. My favorite people to talk about, the SEC. Well, not usually, I have a lot to be able to be said with this and be noted with it as well. So starting this out to be able to share with you guys, you're asking me, what the hell are you talking about and what happened for those that are not following it? What is all the fuss in today's opening market in the New York Stock Exchange for the term of the Bitcoin ETF, the BITO or BITO movement? Well, let's see. The ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF traded on its New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol of BITO. The new ETF will offer a venue to Bitcoin to investors with a brokerage account who might otherwise not want to venture into the unregulated terrain. So instead of going into the decentralized side of Bitcoin and its volatile market, the SEC decided to create this ETF fund. Of course, you have to be registered in order to do anything because you have to be acclaimed with the SEC. You have to turn in your whole life. You have to have keep up with the balances. They look into your we're not even going to get that. Okay, so let's just stop right there. The Pro Shares of Bitcoin Futures ETF has begun trading on this with this stock exchange in a milestone for the cryptocurrency adoption. The exchange traded fund isn't quite pure Bitcoin ETF crypto advocates have long hoped for. It invests in Bitcoin future contracts rather than the asset itself. So now, my cryptocurrency fools that are following me and sending me questions every day, I love you guys all the time, especially on my WhatsApp. Y'all are definitely out there and y'all are asking great questions about this volatile asset. That's the Bitcoin asset, okay? With its Bitcoin future contracts, they're monitoring what this is going to be, but it could be the first of many. And just yesterday afternoon, right after the close of the bell, when it was definitely noted of what was going to happen in the Asian market this morning, Grayscale intends to push ahead with its plans to turn its flagship Bitcoin Trust into a spot ETF in a bid to force the SEC's hand. Now you ask, I'm still confused, Pegs. I still don't get it. I still need an explanation. So now let me step way back. An ETF. An ETF is a basket of securities or shares of which are sold on an exchange. The one we're talking about is the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange, okay? They combine features and potential benefits similar to those of stocks, mutual funds, or bonds. And I know you guys have watched me on One Global Money many times where I've talked about the bond issues and what we're doing with these treasury yields, okay? This plays with the New York Stock Exchange. So the SEC figured they needed to do something in movement as well as show, hey, we are working on getting into the digital world. Like individual stocks, the ETF shares are traded throughout the day at prices that change based on supply and demand. And let's face it, our supply and demand chain is way out there. Even though Americans are spending money left and right, it's where they're spending their money. Now you ask me, as it's been noted into regards and been noted of stating what the Bitcoin Futures ETF is, what is a Futures ETF? Futures ETF is the options of derivative products built on an existing exchange trading funds. Futures represent an agreement to buy or sell shares of an underlying ETF at an agreed upon price on or before a specified date that is in the future. Okay, I'm going to read this one more time because this last line right here is one that is so important. Future ETFs represent an agreement to buy or sell shares of an underlying ETF. That's Bitcoin ETF at an agreed upon price on or before a specific date in the future. Keyword, future ETF. Now you say this whenever I'm talking into the measurement of what has been noted as a spot ETF, and I'm getting ready to read to you where this came into the divulsion of saying what Grayscale tends to be able to perform and pushing the SEC hand. Now, with that being said, the spot ETF, the value of the ETF will closely track the spot price of the underlying asset, in this case, meaning Bitcoin. In comparison, a futures-based fund may underperform or outperform the spot price, potentially leading to a premium or discount. In the short term, the prices might diverge, but typically they will similarly over in the long term. So holding into the long term of this for the future date that is set could be a benefit. Now, dealing with the SEC in its market values, there are risks, just like there is risk in the decentralized volatile crypto market. Risk with ETF futures and options. The biggest disadvantage of ETF futures is the Contango effect. This occurs when the future price of a commodity exceeds the expected future spot price. Now, I just told you in the spot ETF, this typically happens in a premium or a discount. In the short term of a price might diverge, but typically it is similar over a long term. So it's going to be very important what they set for this future date, okay? The future spot price is below the current price, and investors are willing to pay more for the commodity in the future than its true value. Furthermore, derivatives like options and futures are dangerous for inexperienced investors. So if you do not know this, this is where your financial advisor will come into a huge play, or your broker, to be able to discuss where this underlying is going to be, to know where they're going to base this price for this future ETF set in the market, okay? Both products are time-sensitive investments and subject to systematic drawdowns, counterparty risk, and price risk. So that price factor is going to play into a huge factor line as to what happens with what we're talking about in regards to this market. So being able to state this to you guys, it's something that is not underlying, but one to be able to be stated. Now, as we're going into, let's see, our timeline as to the ProShares of the Bitcoin Strategy ETF, let's take a glance over and see where we're at. Now, this definitely jumped into the value opening market lines of $41.67 just before I started recording, okay? We are now, as you guys know, I turn into Market Watch, is where I look at the different volatile markets and seeing what's happening across the board. You can see up here, US, Europe, Asia, FX, the rates, the futures, and the crypto. So you can see what is happening into the draws. Now, early morning on, as Asia market got into it in their market, as the New York Stock Exchange opened, we are into the after hours, as you can see, looking into the market, $41.87. You ask yourself, what is the trend of change in regards to this, and not notable into the movement of what has happened with this and the expiration of it. Here is what you're looking at with the US Bitcoin ETF. I've got it as a scalability of the simple moving average margin line, so you can see where it stayed up with it. Secondly, I've noted into the volume line. And even more impressions is what this ETF does was the cost factors of the buy and sell. You can see where we opened into it, looking at it early on into the morning hours. This was stepping into it right off the bat as we opened it up into the market. And you can see its scalability kept its balance as we scaled into the day. And in this movement, it gave us great value and opportunities, but it stuck itself out and became an even plateau of what I say is going to be in regards to this retracement of what you're seeing with Bitcoin right now. But this shot Bitcoin up, and then if Bitcoin did a pullback. So let's go into that and take a glance over before I start reading into this. Now, here we are with Bitcoin, looking into it of what its movement is and where we're at driving into this factor. Bitcoin making sure that it's justified itself into movement of today's bears. Here is our bear line markets of today, coming into it at 69.12, looking into it back then, even into August, we were in a huge bear market, scared to death of what was going to happen. And at this time last year, into August and September, you were justifying anywhere between 9,000 and playing into it to 12,000. And look where we're at today. We're in 63,000, 64,000 playing into the mode of Bitcoin. To me, this is one that is driven for going into this market. Now, moving over and stepping into it, let's look at this into the last hour and where we're at, driving it. Excuse me, bear with me just a little bit, guys. I got a little excited and ahead of myself. You can see where the candles have in their margin lines. Now, with this being said, you can see the RSI of its close right here, 73.70 I'm going to go with. it definitely did a counter jump today. So it definitely played in the RSI line, that it kept its movement. Here's these indicators that I was talking to you about, right? 1, 2, 3. Okay. This gave us that push. Okay. This was a time lapse in regards to what I suggested into these factors of the movement and where it was added into these flavors. I also shared in the divergence market of the indicators showing where these indicators would lie into this as a comparison with the RSI. This is definitely a streamline to show where we're going to be an inlay at the close of market today, where it did go, since we are now into the after hours. This plays into a huge factor line as to what we're going to see, and the underlining stepping into this of movement, of making sure that it is noted. Oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to cross over you guys. Making sure we are into a noted value line as to where we're going to be with this new factor of this ETFs. But the SEC, remember, they're trying to drive this market. They're trying to figure out where they want to lay with this. What is the importance and the necessities of where they need to be? Now, some of you do not understand the meanings of the candlesticks. You think green, that means go. A green candlestick means that the opening price of the day was lower than the closing price of the day. Okay, that means the price moved up during the day. This is why you see those graduating candlesticks that I just showed you guys. Okay, now the red candlesticks mean that the opening price was higher than the closing price that day. That means the price moved down during the day, which we had those because I just showed you the indicators where the movement was with the RSI, that it did make this movement and played into these factors. Now, with that being said, the MACD, the moving average convergence divergence, it is a trend following the momentum indicator that shows the relationship between two moving averages of a security's price. Traders may buy the security when the MACD crosses above in its signal line, and sell or short the security when the MACD crosses below the signal line, which I did share this with you guys as well whenever we were just showing that into the market lines with you guys. And in the description of what I was showing you right here, let me get back over here and show you what I'm talking about. That crossover, the blue and the red lines that I was showing you in the volume lines. Now, why is this not moving? Hang on, bear with me just a second. Okay, here we go, right here. You see these crossovers in the RSI lines, right? This is the MACD, okay? This is that movement that it's talking about, what I was just sharing with you guys. This is a real important factor when you're looking at this, okay? This ETF, I'm gonna be quite honest with you guys, I'm not in support of this, of what they've done and where they're driving with it. Let me say that, okay? I don't. They're trying to captivate investors to think that if they do it in this market, then they can benefit it by not being into the crypto market, the decentralized side of it. I'm taking my risk factors into the decentralized side of it because I can move my money where I want to and when I need to, so I can protect and hold my store of value, right? With this ETF, it's going to set that price for its future. So this is where you guys have to understand the difference in this movement market. Now, when the first Bitcoin futures ETF rose itself early into the morning hours, was it last up about 3%. The fund tracks the CME, which I just told you guys is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And for those of you that do not know the meaning of that, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, CME, it's often called the Chicago Merc. The Merc, or better labeled that way, is a global derivative marketplace based in Chicago. It's located in downtown. It was founded in 1898 as the Chicago Butter or the Egg Board. It is your agricultural commodities exchange. This is where my precious metals sit and what I look and follow a lot. And this is where a lot of factors play into it in the Asian markets, that they watch it as well, because there's a lot of movement going on in regards to that. Okay. Now, when it opened up this morning with the Bitcoin futures, or the contract speculating on its future price of the Bitcoin rather than in the crypto itself, this is what, excuse me, categorized for Bitcoin to play. What I just showed you guys in CoinMarketCap, where the indicators were playing with this. And this is where we got those green candle factors of justifying that price margin, right? Okay, this means that they allow the market participants to have access the Bitcoin market and hedge and direct exposure to the Bitcoin pricing. That means investors in the ETF would expect the price and the performance of the shares to differ somewhat from the price of the Bitcoin itself. You've got a centralized location, and then you've got a decentralized location. The idea of existing investors, many of them take a long view on cryptocurrencies and had hoped for an ETF that would track physical Bitcoin that investors could buy and be able to hold. There's where the futures gains come in. This is why Grayscale pulled in, and they're going to give a big, huge push of statutes with the SEC. Now, the fund seeks to provide capital appreciation primarily through managed exposures to Bitcoin future contracts. The fund does not invest directly in Bitcoin. I don't know how many times I have to say that. I've already had 5 different people pop up on here in comment lines saying, is this going to be the same factors of directly investing in Bitcoin? No, 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 no. Bitcoin is its own decentralized. You have to remember, SEC controls the movement out there on the New York Stock Exchange, which is being held for this ETF into the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. The crypto industry has been longing for a Bitcoin-related ETF for many years. In about 2017, when Bitcoin took its huge crash, asset managers began applying to launch spot Bitcoin ETFs, but their proposals were rejected by the Securities and Exchange Commission, because at that time, the SEC didn't believe in anything that was decentralized. And now here we are. You've got Janet Yellen, who is in our Treasury Board. She is pushing this, and this is why this letter is coming into play. Chamber of Digital Currency is out there in Washington, D.C., backing her in regards to this. And this is why now you see Biden administration is taking a huge factor. I'm so excited into this, that they're taking a huge factor of jumping on board with this, you guys, and showing that we can move this market. So now they're going to try to do it by controlling it with this ETF, just by saying that this gives you a satisfying underlying effort of investing in it. I say, no, I'm going to do the decentralized side of it, because I can make sure that it is managed the way I want it. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm still a little bit of recovery, but I get excited. You guys know how excited I get when it comes to cryptocurrency. Okay, Bitcoin's price surged with its 6-month high, climbing up past 63,000 as we closed into the market value lines of the futures focus. The largest cryptocurrency has climbed itself 33% over the past month, and we're only new, fresh 3 weeks, going into 3 weeks into our Q4. With these expectations of the SEC would approve that the exchange traded fund, which invests in future contracts tied to this cryptocurrency. It can't do this, okay? Now, at the bell rang open of the day's session, the New York Stock Exchange, the stock ticker broke into its BITO. The first day of trading volume appeared strong, with at least 1.89 million shares of the ETF changing hands in the first couple of hours. And this is why you saw the strong hold in that volume when it first started out this morning. Now, as of close of the universal time, the Bitcoin share price was trading at $41.36, up 3.4% of its initial asset for over $40. This is a huge market impact, which offers investments the opportunity to gain exposure to returns of Bitcoin, the BTC, with the ease of buying a stock in a brokerage account. That's right. You have to be approved in that account. So this is one that they've been out there trying to share for the investors to be able to get their paperwork in. So if we get good volatility, good liquidity, and we develop some kind of ongoing interest, and we see the coin itself continue to move up, then they think that this would probably be enough evidence, as this was being described by Michelle Schneider, Managing Director of the Market Gauge on CoinDesk. This is why she likes to wait at least a week coming out of the gate with a new stock offering to evaluate whether this will be successful. I totally agree. You have to be careful when you're out there into these market shares. Now, the ProShares ETF is structured to invest the Bitcoin future contracts trading on the CME. As I told you guys, investing in this cryptocurrency is not directly of abundance with this, okay? This is something that they wanted to be able to share to move this in a ProShares Bitcoin strategy ETF. ProShares is the one that be able to set the standard out on the CME, okay? This is definitely a high trend coming into this. So you ask me, here's a great question. Why would the SEC prefer a Bitcoin futures ETF? Well, I'm fixing to tell you why. A lot has been made of the SEC's approval of futures-based funds and distate for a spot Bitcoin ETF since 2017 and been hit in the face time and time again. The thinking behind it is that there are better investor protections around the futures of the market, okay? Because they're going to set that future. Remember what I described to you of a future ETF. As an ETF based on futures, that means it will be an actively managed fund. The company issuing the fund will trade Bitcoin futures, and the success of the fund will depend on their trading strategies. Currently, the proposed Bitcoin future ETFs would only include long positions, not short term. That means the companies behind the ETFs would only be able to take long Bitcoin positions and would not be able to take any short positions. There are other companies trying to launch inverse Bitcoin future ETFs, which are for short positions, but they haven't been approved yet. Yes, I'm going to read that to you one more time. There are other companies trying to launch inverse Bitcoin future ETFs, which are for short positions, but have not been approved yet. So will they get the slap in the face of the SEC like they did in 2017 when there were so many out there on the platform trying to justify this into values? Okay, so the CME will hold the futures trade into the market line of the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. There are around 5 Bitcoin future ETFs in line to launch in the near term, with potential to launching just this week. So this is why I don't feel it would be an important game to be able to stay focused into this movement of the ETFs and see exactly where this is going to be driven. Okay, I hope I have given you one little bit of educating in regards to the ETF factors, what the SEC is doing, where it's sitting on the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange values, and it is not comparison of what it's going to be investing into our Bitcoin and the decentralized system of the cryptocurrency market. You take this, you do your own reading research, get back with me. I'm Peggy, your crypto gal. Dingle my bell, subscribe to me, keep me alive out here on YouTube. I'm back and I'm hot in action for you guys. You can follow me on Telegram, Instagram, and Facebook if you're not out here into the areas of YouTube. I appreciate your time today. I hope you guys have gotten, like I say, at least one thing to continue on with your read and research. You be safe out there with your investment. And if you are getting involved in these ETFs, please make sure your advisor stays awake in the middle of the night, because something can definitely justify itself and it can definitely do a complete pullback. This is why I stay on the decentralized side. Okay, you guys, I'm so appreciative of your time today. I hope this definitely gives you a little bit more understanding in regards to what happened today in the New York Stock Exchange while sitting out there in the CME for the commodities markets of this new ETF and where they're going with it and the more that is coming out with it. Let's just see what happens this week. You guys have a great evening, and I will talk to you guys really soon.